As the live glass making demonstration begins, we want to thank you from everyone here at the Museum of Glass, everyone on the hot shop floor, all our staff. We thank you for joining us this summer afternoon here at the Museum of Glass, where we will watch some amazing glass making demonstration. Here today, we do have a featured artist. We have Sean O'Neill working down in our center. He is what we call the person in charge. Yes, let's give Sean a round of applause. Now, Sean will be here at the museum every Monday and Tuesday until July 3rd. He's gonna be the person in charge of making everything we make here today. Through the top screen, we are gonna show you some of Sean's work so we can begin to understand what we're making here, but we also have some of his work in person where you can see down in our table. So if you're sitting in the first row on the left-hand side, you can see some of his wonderful artwork here in person. Today's demonstration, I do want to begin by letting everyone know now that our summer hours are here at the museum, and as we begin to really heat up here, remember safety is our #1 priority. We do offer free water when you enter the museum, this cone shape. On the right-hand side, we have water. Please, everyone, stay hydrated. It does get hot inside of this hot shop floor in this cone. So please, everyone, if you feel nauseous, you can exit the cone. You can also watch our live demonstration from the lounge area in our ground hall. We have some couches there. We have our TV set up with our live stream. Please feel free to exit this hot shop and watch the live glass making from out there while it's still a little cooler. Because I know our #1 priority here is everyone stay safe. So once again, if you're getting nauseous, feel a little sick, please exit the museum. But we do have free water here for all of our visitors. With that said, I'm just gonna jump right into this glass making fun. Again, our featured artist, if you want to stay in contact with them, you can go to his website. His Instagram also is down on the right-hand corner, and then his gallery representative. Now, at any point of the glass making demonstration, you're more than welcome to check out the glass making from this top balcony. It's a fantastic place to view the live glass making, and I recommend it at any given time. Come up here, definitely check it out. It's a great place. We also have some artwork all made here at the Museum of Glass hot shop floor. Again, my name is David. I'm gonna be your MC here today. If you have any questions at any given time, please feel free to raise your hand or shout my name. I'll be right on over. I can answer any question you may have, and I'm also more than happy to share my glass making experience. With that said, the action begins down here on this hot shop floor. Here at the museum, we have 2 furnaces, both holding approximately 1,000 pounds of molten glass. You can find one on the left-hand side, and then if we travel down to this end, our right-hand side, I'm gonna open this door, by the way, right now, so if you're standing in this general area, you're gonna feel some heat of the furnace. Now, this is, again, about 2,100 degrees, about the same temperature as the molten lava. Behind that door lies a crucible, a hot pot where the glass sits at. And oh man, it is so fun to work down here because of this furnace down here. We can see it. If you have a trained eye, you can see that the glass level is a little on the lower end. I would say it's right below the seal. Oh man, that's hot. Now, if anybody brings marshmallows or anything, this is a good place we can set that up for you. But another major piece of equipment very similar to the furnace is a glory hole. Now, these chambers are used to reheat the glass. Top screen, we have a diagram to show you exactly what it is. Essentially, it's a barrel on its side lined with fire brick to insulate and keep the heat inside. and also powered by natural gas. That is our fuel source here at the museum. Now notice that there's like a whirling sound in here, right? Everyone hears that. It's just not me, and it's not just you, of course. But natural gas is a low-burning fuel, so you need a lot of oxygen. That sound that you are hearing is the blower and the forced oxygen we use to really increase the temperatures of our chambers here at the museum. We are getting ready to apply this very fancy pattern on the very outside of our piece. Now, down in the center, we're going to be heating up this kiln shelf. On the very kiln shelf itself, we have this pattern that we made earlier. What we're doing right now is we're beginning to heat up this plate. We really begin to apply heat to our canes. And ooh, look how beautiful this is. I am gonna bring some of this around so we can all see exactly what we're rolling up. But earlier, the team was creating some of these long strands of glass. I'm gonna start from this end and then we can kind of see it. Later on, I will kind of dole up the edges and we can pass it around through our crowd. But right now, it is gonna be a little sharp. So unfortunately, I can't have it leave my hand for that reason. But again, later on, I will kind of clean up the edges for you all, and we can pass that around the audience so we can see exactly what we're rolling up. But this is the pattern of the glass that we're working on now. So there's a bunch of striations and lines in this glass that we've done earlier. All we need to do now is heat them up, stick them to one another, and here very shortly we're gonna roll on the surface and pick up this whole pattern. So a repeated amount of these will be picked up on the end of a blowpipe. To do so, Sean, our featured artist, has gathered glass and created what we call a post. The post is the necessary amount of glass to pick up the actual pattern itself. Now, our little canes are sitting on the kiln shelf, and to make it a little easier, we apply a little bit of kiln wash. Here at the museum, our resistance, essentially the kiln wash is used so it doesn't stick to the rod. Here at the museum, we just go out to our local clay mines, we bring a little baggie, collect a little bit of clay, and that will be the kiln wash we use here at the museum. Now, as this goes on, we're gonna be doing something else also for you on the right-hand side. We have Jen Ellick. Now, on her end of the glass, she actually has a little bit of white color and a handful of clear layers on the very surface. What we're gonna do, or what Jen is gonna do, is she's gonna stretch this massive glass from one end of the room to the opposite, and that leads us to our cooling rack. So these are ladders that we will lay out here, and the glass that we set upon can slowly cool down without touching the concrete. What we're looking for here is to create what we call basic cane. A little bit of white glass on the inside, colored glass on the outside. If you go through our gallery, through our store, if you see straight lines, this is how it was made. Chances are, this straight cane. This can be used to create a lot more different patterns. As we look down here on our pedestal, the lines that you see here, every single one line is one individual cane. We can also see the dotted effect on this piece that's essentially on the edge of it. So every single line, again, is one individual cane. And oh man, we're gonna be getting ready for a lot of action down here. Again, down in the center, we have Sean, our featured artist. He's gonna go ahead and roll on the very surface of this plate, and we can go ahead and pick up the beginning pattern. Now notice we've been squishing these canes together to ensure they stick to one another. And then the added thing that we do is we actually flip the plate to ensure we have even heatness going on. So if you want to show your friends or your family something unique you saw here at the museum, you can hit record on your smart device right now. We're gonna go ahead and pick up this pattern. Sean has that moil ready, nice and hot on the end. Here we have Bobby, he's heating up this sheet of glass. We're gonna make that sheet into a plate of glass here or later on. And oh man, there's a lot of things going on here, but remember, as this happens right now, Jen on that left-hand side is gonna be stretching out a mass of glass. We're gonna stretch it from one end of the room to the opposite. And look at these patterns going on. It's hard to believe, but these canes that we're rolling up right now, Jen made earlier today, less than 2 hours ago, in a very similar process that you see now. The center of the glass, we're looking for the diameter of a number 2 pencil, which is already set. So this area is cold. What we're actually stretching out is this end of the rod, Jen's massive glass still containing heat. And we can see a little bit more of that red and orange glow. But look at that. That's a nice even thickness all the way around. And that just takes experience. You don't have to do this 1 or 2 times. I'm talking about like 100 times to get this right. And Jen knows how to do it. She's been working with glass for a very long time. To the museum. Thank you for joining us. Now, I hope I haven't lost anyone just quite yet in the glass making process, but again, if you have a question, please feel free to ask me. You can raise your hand or shout my name and I'll be right on over. Answer any questions you may have. So is the glass sticky? It is a little bit. That's why we're using the cooling rack so it doesn't touch the ground. At this state, it's pretty cold, so it actually won't stick to anything. But when we're initially pulling it, yes. We throw something in there, it probably will stick to it. Now the glass itself has a consistency of warm honey, and it's due to its viscosity that allows it to stick to the rod. So our initial gather is just the rod going into the furnace, and it's due to the consistency itself that allows it to stick to the rod. Now down on the left-hand side, our furnace, number 1, is running a little low on glass. And we can see Nick right now getting ready to charge our furnace. He's filling it back up with more glass material. Some of it is recycled too, so some of this clear glass we have around the hot shop floor will go back into the furnace. But the glass that we melt here at the museum is specifically formulated for offhand glass making. And it comes to us from the manufacturer in a pellet-looking form. This is soda lime glass, and this is specially formulated for us. We purchased this nugget about 45 minutes north of Seattle from a company called Spectrum Glass Nugget. And that's currently the glass that we're melting here at the museum. Later in the future, it will be changing from a different manufacturer. But we do know what they add to make this glass. The glass we use, we know they use soda, silica sand, the purest form of sand there is. We then add soda ash and lime. However, we don't know the amounts of each one, and we don't know if they add anything else. It's like a top secret, it's top formula. So only the high-ranking people from Spectrum know what's actually going inside of the glass, and they don't tell anyone the formula. So it's top secret what they're melting and giving us here. Although we know it's really good quality glass. I mean, this stuff has a long working time with it, which means we have a longer time to manipulate it. And all glass makers love that working time. We can see Sean is now using a steel table, We call this the Marver table. It's a great shaping tool by rolling back and forth. And traditionally, these tables were made out of a solid slab of marble, and that's where we get that name Marver from. Nowadays, though, it's been transferred over to this steel table. It does the same process of shaping the glass without that giant price of marble. Another thing is marble can crack under enormous temperature, which means if we gather a hot glass and set it right on top of one of these marble slabs, it can crack it. As we're filling up down here, remember the top balcony is a great place to view the live glass making. It's like my favorite place to view it at any given time. The canes began being rounded, and right now we want a smooth surface. If we try to blow air, it is going to escape towards the top portion, so we are going to seal that off. But we're also looking to melt out any texture that might be left. If we gather on a bumpy surface, an air bubble can be trapped in any small nooks or cranny we might have. So to eliminate that, we're just going to get it nice and hot and smooth out any ridges that might be left behind. Do we have any questions from our audience? Any questions you may have about the process you are seeing here? Now that we've sealed up the hole towards the top, the glass blowing can resume. Down on the right-hand side, to start this cane, we're seeing that process down here. So we're going to be repeating that same process we saw the team stretching out a massive glass. And if you want to see that, it's going to be happening down here on this right-hand side of the hot shop floor. We added the clear patty on the top to close off the hole, but it was only temporary. Now that we're further in the process, we can get rid of all that clear glass that was on there and be left with that beautiful canework design that we've been working so hard to keep. We still have a little bit of glass on there. Notice it kind of like a tail of flower that is just used to yank and pull the glass, but we will get rid of that so we have a nice smooth surface. You want a door, Cal? You want 3 doors? You want 6 doors? Oh, Cal, sure. 6 doors? With a lot of this pulling that you're seeing here, we just want to ensure that all these canes are joining together in one spot. That's what we're going for here. So we're seeing a lot of that pulling. Once we're happy with that, we will continue the glass making, but let's not forget, we're going to watch the team stretch out another massive glass. We do need quite a lot of this to create some of the pieces you see out here. Now, for this one, it's hard to believe, but every single dot line is one of those canes also used in a different way. As you go through our gallery and our store, remember once again, if you see straight lines in the glass, even if they're twisted or twirled, this is what they do. This is how it starts off. If we really want to, we could rebundle these and stretch them out once again. And that's how we did the pattern you see on the rod right now. Glass is just so amazing, by the way. I mean, there's not really any other material that has its same properties. Glass is technically what we call an amorphous solid, which is one of the only materials in the world. Some people believe that glass should be in its own separate state of matter. We know that states of matter are gas, liquid, and solid. Some people say there should be a fourth one called the gaseous state. It's hard to believe this, but even at this cold state, these vessels that we have here along this table, the molecules are still moving. Even on the hot glass we have now and these vases, the molecules will never stop moving. And that's what makes glass so unique. Even at its cold state, this stuff is still moving. So technically it's still a liquid when it's a solid, but you kind of get the meaning what an amorphous solid is now. How will we get different colors? So the colors themselves are made by adding different metals to the periodic table of elements. I have a bar of color I'm going to pass around the audience so you guys can get a look of exactly what we're purchasing from our manufacturer. If you don't mind me asking, what's your favorite color? Silver grayish. Oh, the colors I might know. So to create colors, it's specifically metals from the periodic table of elements. To create a gray color, I would say, let me double check the chart actually, because I don't want to say anything that might be wrong. But to create black glass, we would use manganese. To create purple, it's same manganese, just a little bit less. To create blue or green, sorry, to create blue, we add cobalt. Green is iron and chromium. It's specifically metals. We even use uranium in glass, which creates a glow-in-the-dark green. If you like red and pink glass, it just means you have expensive taste. Red and pink glass is made from adding gold, which makes it some of the more expensive color in the glass industry due to its gold content. And you are paying for that gold in the price point that you paid for it. Again, we do have a bar of glass floating around the shop, the audience, so we can see what we're exactly purchasing from our manufacturer. Well, we've come a long way, but the glass making will resume. Sean will now be entering the furnace for yet another layer. If we want to make something large, something big here in the hot shop, we will repeat this process of gathering glass. And look at that hot, molten layer. Glass has a property of magnification, which means it will make any glass we work with, any color, look solid, even though we now know it is just a thin layer of either color or, in this case, a decorative cane. But this whole piece will look like that, which is quite amazing. Now, the rods that we use here are made out of stainless steel, which is a very poor conductor of heat. But notice where we're turning the rod also. Towards that tip, the rod begins to discolor, and it's no longer shiny. We can see it turn from dull gray to eventually black towards the tip. And we're keeping our hands in the area where the rod is still shiny. That's the secret there, folks. We're not placing our hand in the danger zone where the rod will be hot, rather directly behind that. You can see here that Sean's inspecting the quality of the glass and also where's the best way to view this glass. Now, the wooden blocks we use here on the hot shop floor, they're made out of fruit wood, and we love burning fruit wood here on the hot shop floor because it lasts longer than any other typical type of wood. An added bonus is that it smells like a barbecue when we burn it, since it is a fruit wood. We love burning cherry wood specifically. Just it has more moisture, they last longer. The wooden blocks ensure that the bubble will blow out evenly, but also we will distribute both the heat and the mass of glass around the bubble we have. Now, this is the actual glass blowing part of glass making. Bobby down here, he's standing by. He's going to be blowing through the blowpipe. And if you're wondering how much air are we blowing, we're going to blow about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. So it's not a lot of air, but it does vary. If you're in the top balcony, you can hear some of the communication going on between the team, like blow softly, blow hard, or blow gentle. Notice that there is a hierarchy going on here in the hot shop floor. First person to introduce is our featured artist, Sean O'Neill, taking the seat right center of the hot shop, and this is called the gaffer's bench. The gaffer is the person in charge. Here today, our gaffer is Sean, and then the team around him. I am going to introduce them. Our first person to introduce is our pole turner. That is Cal down here. His job is to give the adequate heat that the gaffer has asked for. We then have the first assistant, which in this case would be Danny down here. Her job is to assist the team in anything they may need. It might be giving Cal a break and saying, hey, can you take a heat real quickly? Or in this case, using wooden paddles to shield the heat that the glass radiates off. And then lastly, we have the blower, which is always standing by to blow air. The shaping tool we're using here to manipulate this hot, massive glass is a wet padded newspaper. You'll notice the team using it on the heat. So for this piece, we're gonna be doing something a little different. We're gonna be filling this cup of glass. So we have a black cup right now, and it's sitting in our annealer. We made this earlier today. Actually, Jen made it today. And we have this beautiful black cup. It's sitting right inside of our garage, or annealer right now, at about 1,000 degrees. We're gonna be stuffing our massive glass inside this cup, so black will be on the outside, and this beautiful pattern will be on the inside. Later on, we're gonna do a carving technique to expose the decorative lines, but as of right now, let's just focus on the glass blowing at hand and the process we're gonna be doing. If you're sitting on this end, you're gonna have a great view of it, but if you wanna see it really, really well, I recommend this area. After that, we can disperse, but right now, what we're trying to do is we're price checking. We're eyeballing to see how much glass we need to fill our cup. To do this, it just takes experience, by the way. Just experience of working with glass, knowing how much volume you can fit inside of it. What we're gonna be doing right now is essentially setting up the core for our stuff. Another thing we will take is we're gonna take another layer of hot glass on top. So let me double check with the team so we can find out how many dips or how many gathers we will need to take before we enter our furnace. So here we go with another price check. We just want to ensure that we're at the right height. What we're looking for is this core to be taller than our actual cup. And look at that. Ooh, look at that. We're going to be taking one more gather of glass. That's going to allow it to stick to the core and it can fuse permanently. I'll let everyone know right before we're ready so we can all huddle around this annealer and watch the process, by the way. I'm not just gonna let you know like, oh, it's happening. I'll give everyone a heads up. And so also our camera crew can have a really good view of the action going on. Sean is still gonna continue to manipulate that mass. Wanna make sure we're taller than that cup right now. The wet padded newspaper we use here in the hot shop floor, we can find them on every single bench we have here. But there's nothing special about the newspaper we burn here at the museum. Although any old newspaper will do, we do prefer the Wall Street Journal. It is our preferred one. So we will fold it, drench it in water, and then burn right through this newspaper. It only lasts a few days, but that's totally fine. We'll go ahead and recycle that pair and fold a new one. So this annealer is the oven that we're keeping our cup in. We're also turning up the temperature to about 1,100 degrees. And this oven is also like a kiln. It's also a great oven to use. I mean, we can cook a turkey in here in half the time too. It might get a little burnt, but it's totally fine, dude. So we're now gonna get ready to stuff our cup. So if we all wanna gather around right now, it's a good moment. Sean will take another decorative. Oh, look at how large that layer is. He holds it straight up and down to get rid of excess glass, but also to be left with the evenly symmetrical shape. All right, so it's almost time, guys. You guys ready to see this? Sean's gonna come right on over. We're gonna fill our cup. Remember, it's gonna be a little hot. It's not dangerous, it's just hot. And if you can see, we have a secondary cup we're going to be using later today also. How amazing is that? We just added 2 different patterns together in one piece. What makes stuffing a cup so difficult is that if Sean makes any sudden movement inside of there and he nicks the side of the cup, a giant air bubble is caused on contact, and it can ruin the whole piece. Most of the times that happens, we throw the piece away just because there's no way of saving that. There's no way of getting rid of that giant air bubble, and it will just be inside the piece the whole time. Yes. How much does it weigh? I would say this piece is floating around 20 pounds, 23 pounds on the high end. Now, that might not seem a lot, but remember, yes, it's on the end of the rod. So it's like going fishing with 2 bowling balls on the end of the rod is what it feels like when you're carrying that around. There's a couple different things we do to counteract the weight. But one move is called the hipping. When we're turning the rod, we actually have it right against our hip, just to make it easier for us to turn. What we're doing now is by rolling back and forth, we're ensuring that the cup has sealed to our core. Now look at that. One thing that's really different about Sean's technique of blowing glass, if you haven't noticed, is Sean is left-handed. Glass blowing is made for right-handed people. It's just the way it is. If you're left-handed as a glassmaker, you still need to learn to work with your right hand. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of glassmakers around the world that are left-handed, but in my own experience, Sean is barely the second glassmaker that I've ever met that comes to the museum left-handed, which is just amazing. Everything is so unique the way that he does it, and he just makes it work. Just like earlier, we're using yet another wooden block. This one is a lot more larger, but just like last time, it's distributing both the heat and the massive glass evenly around the bubble. Notice that glassmaking is all about teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work here at the museum, and it's all about communicating your ideas and also the steps that you will go through to achieve your vessel. Ooh, is there a picture of what we're making? So on our top screen, we're actually going to show you some of the sketches that we were provided here so we can understand what we're working on here. So on our top screen, we're going to flip through a couple different images to show you, just so we can kind of get an idea of what we're creating. We do have some of Sean's artwork down here in the front pedestal, although what we're focusing on here is kind of branching out and creating different vessels also. The gaffer and his crew have already talked about that shape, and we're seeing some of those shapes on our top screen, but we're going to show you later on some of the drawings that Sean has provided us. And so here on the top screen, we have some of those drawings. This is what we're going to be working on here at the museum. Now, there's still a long way to get from that drawing to what we have. When this piece is complete, we're going to send it to a cold shop. Now, the pattern is on the very inside, and black is covering the whole surface. What we will do is actually get rid of the black glass on the surface to reveal the pattern we have underneath and get eventually the pattern we have on our top screen now. Oh man, look at this teamwork. We are blowing through the blowpipe, expanding the bubble. Our featured artist, Sean, is using that wet padded newspaper to control the mass of glass. And then we're constantly shielding him and then turning the rod to ensure that the piece does not fall off center. Do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions that you may have about the process you're seeing here today? We are getting ready for the most dangerous move, I guess you could say. The reason what makes this so difficult is you gotta get it really, really hot. We're gonna be creating a constriction, a break-off point where this piece can be broken free from its rod that it currently has. To do that, we're gonna be squeezing down both blades of a tool called jacks. This way we can create a crevice that will eventually be the break-off point. We can see that glass is nice and hot due to the red and orange glow. Using a pair of cork paddles, we will begin the initial shaping or the initial squishing of the shape we have. Now, this is just a very dense layer of cork. By moving them, they shouldn't catch on fire, but you'll notice they'll really begin to smoke up the longer we really keep them on the hot glass. And look at that move. What Sean is trying to do here is he's really placed a lot of heat on the edges, and by turning fast, centrifugal force should theoretically pull the walls out and make it wider. That's what we're going for here. And you can see Sean's turning that rod back and forth to give that even rotation, but essentially pulling those walls out. For our audience still with us, remember as the summer time is here, this cone really begins to heat up. We do offer a complimentary water when you enter the museum on the right-hand side. We have water. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay hydrated. We'll do the same down here on this hot shop floor. If it gets a little too hot for you, but you still want to see the live glass making, we have you covered. Out in our grand hall, we have a lounge area, we have some couches, we have our live stream set up. Please feel free to watch the live glass making out there. Well, it is now time to transfer our piece onto a different rod. So we need a new handle. Down on the right-hand side, we have Jen. She's gathered glass out of our furnace. Remember, here at the museum, we have 2 furnaces, both holding approximately 1,000 pounds of molten glass. So for those of you who just joined us, we have a diagram on the top to make it a little simpler to understand our furnace. But with this massive glass that Jen has, it will become the new handle. So we will manipulate this a little bit, but essentially this is gonna be where our new, the new way we can begin to work on the opposite side essentially here. Well, we bring this punty right on over after the gather, a little quick cool down. We're gonna go ahead and set it on there, create another constriction, a break-off point for this piece. Now that we have that new rod, there's no way for it to break free unless we constrict a small place. Now that we have this dilemma of 2 rods, we're gonna go ahead and break off our previous rod by adding a few drops of water. Water is extremely bad to hot glass because it can cause it to crack and break. But we're going to use that to our advantage by placing it in the designated area. A few drops. All right, so now we go with a few drops, 1 on each side. There goes 1 droplet. And here goes the 2nd droplet. That's all we need. Now a tap. The piece is broken free. And we can begin to work on the top half of our vessel. And although we've covered up our pattern with that black glass, there's still so much work, more work that will go on this piece before it is broken free. For our visitors that are just coming in or just joined us, again, my name is David. I'm more than happy to answer any question you may have about the glass blowing process you see here today. Our featured artist is Sean O'Neill. We're entering the glory hole, which is approximately 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. On the top screen, we have a diagram of the glory hole to really break it down and simplify what's going on. It is essentially a round barrel on its side, lined with fire brick made to insulate and keep the heat inside. Notice when the glass gets hot, it turns red and orange, and it's a good way to gauge the heat. Now, the true color is black, and it will come back once the piece has cooled down properly. As of right now, though, that top portion will remain that red and orange hue. So the way that color is applied. So here at the museum right now, our pieces are made out of solid color. Once again, if you didn't see our solid color, I'm gonna pass it around the audience. Please pass it around so everyone can get a good view of it. But the color itself is made by adding different metals from the periodic table of elements. Different colors are produced by adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. If you like blue, we will add cobalt. If you like green, we will add chromium or iron, specifically metals. We can even use uranium in glass, which creates a glow-in-the-dark green. If you like red and pink, though, you do have expensive taste. Red and pink glass is made from adding gold. Oh man, so many details that are going on down here. But there's an even bigger detail that will happen once this piece is complete. Although we're gonna be finished with this piece within 30 minutes, I would say. This piece, once it enters a cold shop, will be there for hours and hours. What will happen next is Sean will take this to a cold shop. We're using centuries old glass carving techniques. He will get rid of the black color on the surface and expose that beautiful pattern he has on the inside. We are gonna see a little bit of that once he taps free that little flower on the edge that we're using as a holding spot. It's cooled down. I'll show this around so we can see what the inside pattern will look like. As a glassmaker, you learn never to settle. That's one of the most important rules you're told as a glassmaker. Never settle. Always go back and finish what you started. And that's what we're seeing our featured artist, Sean O'Neill, going back. Use a mixture of compressed air to expand the bubble, and then a pair of cork paddles to ensure he likes what he sees here. We're still leaving the little flower on the very tip. We're gonna get rid of that, but we're leaving it on there, which allows us to pull and tug on the glass. As we sit back, relax, and watch this demonstration, again, the top balcony is always a great place to view this live glass making demonstration. Well, here we go with a little bit of water on the end of the punty. A little grab, a little tap. The piece is broken free, and now we'll cool down for the following 24 hours in the annealer. And just like that, we've wrapped up the first vessel of our afternoon live glass making demonstration. Let's give a round of applause to the crew out here. They did such an amazing job. But can we give another round of applause to our featured artist down here, Sean O'Neill? Sean will be coming back to the museum every Monday and Tuesday until July 3rd, I meant. So July 3rd will be his last day here, but until then, we have a lot of plans to go on. We are still gonna continue the live glass making demonstration, but those of you who are gonna head out, we wanna thank you so much for staying with us, seeing Sean make his incredible work. Remember that this piece, although we're done with here in the hot shop, oh boy, there's still so much more work that will be going on to decorate and essentially create the pattern on the very surface of our vessel. But again, we do like to thank you. If you're gonna stick with us, oh yeah, it's definitely a good time. I am gonna play a short video for you all. However, we're gonna see the Museum of Glass Hot Shop crew create an airplane, but this is gonna give us a good time to kind of reestablish ourselves, and we're gonna be right back on it on our top screen. However, let's see how the MAW crew takes on this challenge.
To fabricate a scale model float plane out of glass takes tremendous effort. Figuring out the exact proportions of the propeller, the length of the body versus the wingspan were all extremely difficult. The Legacy project started off as a collaboration between the Museum of Glass and the Murdoch Charitable Trust. We were commissioned to design and fabricate a glass airplane to commemorate Jack Murdoch. We started by overlaying two contrasting colors of glass that would later show the design elements in the plane. We're working with the glass at a temperature of over 1500 degrees. We create a small color cup to allow for a nice even distribution of color. The colored cup was then stuffed with clear glass to give us enough mass to make the body or the fuselage of the plane. Glassblowing is a team effort. Here at the Museum of Glass, we're unique in that this team has been working together for over 10 years. Each member of our team played a specific role in the creation of the plane. We use a variety of tools to shape and design the body. As you can see here, we're using some cork paddles to rough it out. The body is then transferred to yet another blowpipe so we can finish up the tail of the fuselage. Using those same cork paddles, we give the bottom of the plane a gentle curve before it's put away. After the plane is finished being formed, it's put away into an annealing oven to cool for several days. Once the fuselage was made, we moved on to making the pontoons. We decided we needed to fabricate a steel mold to allow us to make multiples. In order to have the pontoons match the plane, we used the same white color bar. This time, it is solid. The solid glass is then heated up to approximately 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's pressed into a steel mold. The pontoons are then put into another annealing oven to cool down. In our cold shop, the fuselage of the plane is now being ground or sanded down to remove any unwanted material. We then taped off the plane, and using our sandblaster, we revealed the tail numbers, the windows, and the pinstripes on the fuselage of the plane. The sandblasting process is often very rewarding as the color is quickly revealed, bringing life to the aircraft. After being sandblasted, the planes were then returned to the cold shop to be cleaned up and polished. The wings, the vertical and the horizontal stabilizers were all water jet cut out of handmade sheet glass, again made from the same white color to match the body of the plane. Once the glass parts were finished, we fabricated a small steel structure to hold the pontoons to the body of the plane. The nose cone was turned on a lathe while the propeller was carved out of a sheet of steel to make a fully functional propeller. Now that we have all the parts of our plane, it was brought back to the cold shop where the assembly began. The vertical and horizontal stabilizers were notched out to fit the tail of the plane, while the wing was glued into place. The gluing process takes many hours. We start with 2 clean surfaces, apply the glue, and it sits for over 72 hours before a full cure. It was an honor and a challenge to work on the legacy project for the Murdoch Charitable Trust.
We are now going to begin on our very last piece for today's demonstration. Now, the museum will be closing in about 1 hour, so we have plenty of time for this last demonstration, but I typically like to say about an hour is a good amount of time to check out the rest of the museum. We will be, however, blowing glass till 5 o'clock, so if you stick with us, perfectly fine with me. Now, as we begin our demonstration here, I do want to let everyone know that as the sun's coming up, we're now in summer, our hot shop will also get incredibly hot. We do offer complimentary water when you enter the museum on your right-hand side. Please, everyone, stay hydrated. It does get a little hot down here. If you feel nauseous but still want to see the glass making, we have a lounge area in our grand hall where our live stream is playing. You can always watch the glass making from back there. I like to watch it there every now and then because it is nice and cool, but it's also a nice, refreshing change. For this next pattern that we begin to work on, well, it's sitting down here on this kiln shelf. We've lined our kiln shelf with a little bit of kiln wash, which will prevent any sticking that might occur. Another little decorative thing we added is, well, the kiln wash that we use here at the museum, we don't purchase. We actually just go out to our local clay mines in the Pacific Northwest. Here in Tacoma, we have Owens Beach a few minutes away from here. We will go there, and we'll just bring a little baggie and collect some of that clay, and that's the kiln wash that we will use here. It's going to prevent any stickiness that might occur. Now we're going to begin to preheat these canes you see on the end of this. We will then roll on the surface to pick up this pattern. So that is what's going to be going on down in the center. But I do want to talk about what's going on down on your left. We are in the process of charging our furnace. Here at the museum, we have 2 of these furnace, which is about 2,100 degrees, or about the same temperature as molten lava. We're going to be using the one on your right-hand side down here. We have a diagram on the top. I'm quickly going to open this door a little bit, and I can talk to you about what's going on. Behind that door lies a crucible. We are heating up a ceramic pot here at the museum, and that is where all the hot molten glass is kept. To gather glass, we will dip the rod inside of that pot of glass by turning we can then gather the necessary amount needed. Another piece of equipment very similar to the furnace is the glory hole. Now this is where the glass is reheated at. And on our top screen, we're also going to show you a diagram to really simple it down. The glory hole, essentially it is a round barrel on its side lined with fire brick made to insulate and keep the heat inside. These are a little bit hotter than the furnace also. They're at 2,300 degrees, but remember, there is no glass inside of these. This is just the heat we entered to continue to manipulate the hot glass. We see the process beginning down on the right-hand side, but eventually it will be moving to the center as we roll on the surface to pick up our canes. The first heat is the initial heat. It is just to preheat the rods, just to get them happy, ensuring that they're not going to crack. We then do a little squeeze to ensure they're sticking to one another, but they're not quite fused together yet. It's totally fine. We're going to be taking a secondary heat, but to ensure that these canes are eating up evenly, we're going to flip this plate here shortly. With this second heat, we really begin to introduce the heat with the canes. This time we're gonna let them soak in there for a little bit. And the key signs we're looking for as a glass maker is we're looking for the glass to not be sharp on the edges, but rather to curl, to roll up. That's showing that the glass, the heat has already penetrated more than the surface. And when we see Cal over here and he looks forward inside of it, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for the edges of the cane rolling or to smooth out and not have that harsh 90-degree break off. A little bit of red and a little orange on the tips is exactly what we're going for. A little squeeze, and there, the canes have now been fused together. A flip of the plate will ensure that these canes will be heated up evenly. And here shortly, we're gonna go ahead and roll on that very surface and pick up our pattern. So Sean's been standing by. Our featured artist, Sean O'Neill, has what we call the moil of the glass, or the core. That core will be rolled on the surface, and just like that, we're gonna pick up that top layer. Sean takes an additive layer on the surface that will ensure that the glass is hot enough to stick on contact. All right, well, I hope everyone's ready. We're just gonna roll right on that surface. And look at that. All those canes, they were individual maybe as of 10 minutes ago, and they have all now joined together. Once again, for our audience joining us, my name is David. If you have any questions at any given point, please feel free to raise your hand or shout my name. So how are the colors applied and where do they come from? The colors themselves are made from adding different metals of the periodic table of elements. Different metals will produce a different color. Let's say your favorite color is blue. To make blue glass, we will add cobalt. To make green glass, we can add chromium or iron. Black glass is made from manganese. If you like red and pink glass, well, that means you have expensive taste because red and pink glass is made from adding gold. By adding gold, you can create red and pink, which makes it some of the more expensive color in the glass industry. Here at this museum, we don't melt our own color. Rather, we only melt clear glass. If we wanted to, theoretically, it is possible. We can add a little bit of cobalt to our furnace. That means everything will become blue, which might be cool for a while, right? Everything will be blue. After a while, it might get old. By melting clear glass here at the museum, we're giving ourselves the ability to use the full range of their color spectrum rather than one, or in this case, two single colors. So yes, the blob of glass that we have on the end of the rod, out in our furnace on the left-hand side, that one's running a little low on glass. When we have anywhere from 600 to 400 pounds left, we'll begin the charging furnace. The glass to us comes into this pellet form. This is soda-lime glass produced about 45 minutes north of Seattle called Spectrum Glass Nuggets. So this is what we buy from the manufacturer, and it's specifically formulated to stay at a molten state for a longer period of time. All this means is we have a longer working time. We do know what they make this glass of. We know the basic materials, I should say. We know it's silica sand, soda ash, and lime. However, we don't know their recipe, and that's top secret. Only they know exactly what they're adding and the amount of what they're adding. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they can sell the actual formula for quite a lot of money, which I believe they recently have sold the formula off. Now, if you want to make some glass in your own home, it is possible by going to your local beach sand. I'm hesitant to say this because you're recording this, but to make glass in your own home, you can go to a beach, right? Here at the Pacific Northwest, we have Owens Beach or Titlow Beach. Now, you go and you make a big bonfire, and here's the two main ingredients you need, the two main secrets. You need a place where air can flow in, and I mean a lot of air. You need to make a little channel so air can flow in, because that's what's going to increase the temperature of the fire. And then this is the second thing, the second secret ingredient, is you get a little bit of seaweed. A little seaweed, place that right below the fire. Theoretically, when that melts, it should make it should lower the glass or the sand to lower its melting temperature by acting as a flux and stabilizer, theoretically. So yeah, just a little seaweed underneath that fire can change it. Now, our piece of glass that we had laying on the kiln shelf was sitting on kiln wax, or kiln wash, I should say, which prevents it from sticking to the plate. But even with that kiln wash, we can still get a little bit of stickiness and a little bit of residue that might be left behind. What you're seeing here is Sean taking the proper steps to remove any glass that he doesn't want on there. Since we are going to spend quite a long time working on this glass, we do want to ensure that it's good quality. That means removing any impurities like a chip or a stone, or in this case, a little bit of kiln wash. Oh man, now look at all this glass making fun down here. Teamwork is the dream work, and that's what we're all about down here at the museum, is working together to complete a piece. We can notice how we're using a wet pad of newspaper. We're blowing through the blowpipe, expanding the bubble, and then we're using wooden paddles to shield the heat that the glass will radiate off. Now, the museum will be closing in about 35 minutes, and I want to give everyone the heads up. 35 minutes is barely just enough time to walk through the rest of what the Museum of Glass has to offer. So if you haven't had a chance to look at everything else, now is a good time. Yes. Can you keep a piece of glass? Where are you coming from? From Tacoma? Do you go to Tacoma Public Schools? You don't? You go to a private school here. I'm gonna do two things for you, all right? How old are you? You're 12? Fantastic. What's your name, buddy? Vlad? Vlad, all right. So here, I'm gonna give you two things, all right? Are you in middle school or high school? You're in middle school, okay. Check this out here. So we have this amazing program. It's called Hilltop Artists. Since you're 12 o'clock and since you're 12 and older, you can become a glass maker. You can learn to work with glass. I'm gonna give you this, all right? You want your parents to fill that out. This program is completely free. You don't have to pay anything. Your parents don't have to pay anything. As long as you go to the Tacoma Public School District, even if you're private school or homeschool, you can still be in this program. You can learn how to work with glass, how to blow glass, fusion, mosaics, bead making, borosilicate glass, so many different types of glass. If you promise me that you'll fill this out and you'll turn it in, I'll give you glass. Does that sound fair? You have to ask your parents, but will you promise me that you're gonna do that? You're gonna try? All right, I'm gonna give you some glass. So these are just glass pieces we have here at the museum that are laying around, all right? You promise me that you're gonna fill that out, because you can learn how to blow with glass, even if you just do it. These classes are just for 2 weeks. You go wake up in the morning, you can go blow glass. You can learn how to make a cup, a bowl, and you can give it to your mom and dad, all right? Sound good? Sweet. Yeah, no problem. We are going to be filling up a cup. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the Museum of Glass. Thank you so much for joining us for this last little bit. Again, the museum will be closing within 35 minutes, but we're going to continue blowing glass until 5. We have our featured artist down here. He's going to go ahead and gather hot molten glass. We're going to be filling our cup that's sitting down on your left-hand side of the furnace. So here we go with that hot molten layer. We're going to come on over and begin to fill our cup bottom to top. look at that. We just applied that black layer on the very outside. The glass blowing will now resume as we manipulate that mass into the final shape of our vessel. So these rods that we use here in the hot shop floor, they're made out of stainless steel, which is a very poor conductor of heat. So the heat's not transferred all the way through. Now they're made out of stainless steel, and majority of the time, we handle the rod where it's still shining, not from the discoloration that you see towards the tip. Typically, I like to say that that top part is it is the danger zone where the rod, chances are it will be hot, so we'll keep our hands directly behind that general area. But now that we have this pattern, this color, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the actual blowing part, the glass blowing portion of this vessel. So sitting on this end, we're gonna be blowing air. Now we have Bobby here. He's gonna be standing by to blow air through the blowpipe. And when he's asked to blow air, he will blow about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. Now, it's not a lot of air, but it will vary. So we had a question about the blowing portion. We're gonna go ahead and do that here now. Sean is using a wet pad and newspaper now. Any old newspaper will do, but we are pretty picky here at the museum. We do prefer to burn the Wall Street Journal, but as we use that shaping tool, we're blowing through that blowpipe. It is expanding the bubble that we have as we speak. And when we're typically blowing, we're blowing about the same air pressure you use to blow out a candle. Now, it's not a lot of air, but it does vary. Sometimes you're asked to blow soft and gentle, and on the other hand, you can also be asked to blow incredibly hard. We use a little bit of water on the very back portion. Since it is clear glass, it is going to heat up faster than that black with the white. White color doesn't heat up that quickly. It actually absorbs a lot of this heat and not release it. So as this piece gets really, really hot, that clear portion is going to get out of hand before the white and black area becomes hot. Yeah, that happens with glass. It is breaking. Yeah, it just cools down quickly. You're right. You're right on there. As we watch this live glassmaking demonstration, I do recommend the top balcony. It's a great place to view the live glassmaking for these next few minutes, because the museum's only going to be open for about 20 minutes, probably less than that. We're just going to sit back, relax. Again, if you have questions, shout my name. My name is David, or raise your hand. More than happy to come on over and answer any questions. But let's just sit back, relax, enjoy the show, enjoy featured artist Sean O'Neill with this massive glass, and watch as it comes to life with this vessel. We've manipulated this massive glass using a couple different tools, from cork paddles to that newspaper, but it is now time to switch it to a different rod. We will bring over the new handle on which we can continue to work this massive glass with. So Jen, down on that right-hand side, she's gonna be bringing over what we call the punty. Now, unfortunately, for the remainder of this piece, we are gonna finish behind closed doors. The museum will be closing in about 5 minutes. Now, you don't have to go home. You just can't stay here, unfortunately. So our doors are gonna be closing here soon. I'm pretty sure the galleries are about to close. If you have to go to the restroom, right now is a really good time before we close those also. However, we are just gonna continue here till 5 o'clock, so we have a few minutes left. We bring over the punty, the new rod. Go ahead and attach it right on center. Little water, a tap is broken free, and we can now begin to work on that top half of our vessel. Well, from everyone here at the Museum of Glass, we'd like to thank you for joining us here today on our afternoon live glassmaking demonstration. The museum will now be closing. Unfortunately, you can't stay. You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here. Our doors will be closing now. This piece will be finished behind closed doors, but if you want to see it being made, check out our live stream. We will be finishing this piece up here. And this is typically how we operate here at the museum. Again, my name is David. We want to thank you so much for joining us. Our featured artist here today, Sean, will be back next Monday and Tuesday until July 3rd. So Sean O'Neill will be our featured artist till then. Hopefully we see you another time back here at the Museum of Glass, but we will now be closing. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a fantastic afternoon.